Hi, ladies.
Hey.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm wonderful.
Good.
Good to see you guys again.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk about this book.
Oh, I know.
So this week we will be discussing Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. And I just want to go off and say that this is the first book that I've ever read of hers, and I am loving her style.
Oh, I know. She's so poetic.
Yeah, she writes very well.
And it's the picture. Like, I see it as I'm reading it.
Yeah.
And it's not like so many details that's it's overwhelming, but like it's very well written.
I
So
agree.
I wonder though, like, because I know they say that some people can't picture, like when they're reading, they don't picture anything in their head. And I wonder if that's for every type of genre, or if it's just that like they don't connect to certain genres. Because I feel like her book is just like watching a movie. Like,
Yes.
I feel like I am watching a movie and not reading this. So
yes.
I feel like that a lot with fantasy books.
yeah, and I wonder if it's more fantasy books that you get that
I don't
feel to.
because with the last book that we read, the 20 years later, I did not feel like I was watching it in my head. I mean, it was still very descriptive and I could picture it if I thought about it. But
Yeah.
it wasn't just like a natural instinct reflex to like watch
That
a
it was like
movie in
playing
my
out.
mind. Yeah.
I agree.
So
And I think
maybe-
there was so much back and forth with that book between like points and destinations and so much going on.
I wonder though, like too, with like being the fantasy genre, that they have to put so much detail because it's not real.
Yes.
So then you get like that. The author is just putting a lot of detail into their work because they're trying to make you see something that they put together in their head. So I'm curious. You guys are going to have to let us know listening if you can see this book playing out in your head like we could.
Yes.
I really
Were we all
would love-
watching the same movie?
I would really love this to become a movie.
Yeah, it
Yes.
would be awesome. If you're listening and you're a movie producer,
This is your chance.
this is your chance. Make these women happy.
So I did want to start off with the synopsis of the book just to give a little bit of a viewpoint for people. So it's two young rival journalists. They find love through a magical connection that they must face the depths of hell in war and among gods to seal their fate forever. After centuries of sleep, the gods are warring again. But 18-year-old Iris Winnow just wants to hold her family together. Her mother is suffering from addiction and her brother is missing from the front lines. Her best bet is to win the columnist promotion at the Oath Gazette. To combat her worries, Iris writes letters to her brother and slips them beneath her wardrobe door, where they vanish into the hands of Roman Kitt, her cold and handsome rival at the paper.
I think that sounds good.
So I thought it was funny because I never read the back of the book, and I had started reading this book before you put your synopsis announcement out, and I was taking notes, and I was like, oh, she's writing to somebody and it's disappearing beneath the door. I'm like, it's probably not a brother. I wonder who it is going to. And when she got the response back and it was like, this is not Forrest, I was like, oh, I bet it's Roman. And so I wrote down a note and then I'm reading along and I was like, oh. And then
we read the synopsis.
I read the synopsis and I was like, well, I got to delete all those notes.
Because that was already a given detail.
So I'm going to have to do better with the reading synopsis before I start taking notes on books.
You know, I don't think you're the only person, though, that doesn't read the back of the book. I think a lot of people don't read the back of the book.
I agree.
I do when I'm buying a book for myself. If I'm at Barnes & Noble and I'm looking through books, I will read the back just to kind of get an idea. Unless it literally jumps off the shelf at me because I think it's beautiful on the front, I will read the back. But this book, I just heard people talking about and put it on my wish list, and I actually won it in a Christmas giveaway type of thing. And then when Katie decided to pick it, I didn't even pick it back up and read the back of it. And
You're
this
just
was
like, hey, I have it.
I got it. Let's go.
Let's
I'm
start
so
reading.
excited to read this. And yeah,
So speaking of, this book has had so much hype and wonderful reviews. There's rants and raves all over social media, TikTok, I'm sure Bookstagram. I'm not on Bookstagram, so I don't know. Did you guys feel nervous reading it because of all of the excitement and hype around this book? Were you like, oh, what if I don't like it?
yeah, maybe because if we voiced our opinion and it was like, this book really sucked, which it doesn't, it's really great. I don't think I was thinking about it really.
I was very nervous to read it because I have had this book on my shelf before the second one even came out. You know, pull my finger, you can get me to buy just about any book. And the more and more I heard people talk about it, the more and more I didn't want to read it because I was worried. I'm always worried that I'm not going to like what everybody else
Yeah.
likes.
Well, I feel like it has a really big presence on TikTok, and you watch a lot of stuff on TikTok with books, so I'm sure that you've probably seen more than we have, and that might be a little bit more intimidating to you than it was to us.
I actually have not seen a whole lot of detail about it though, because it is under the Press Wednesday Books,
Oh,
the
for
imprint,
that book ban.
and on at least on Book Talk, on my side of Book Talk, there is a marketing boycott going on because of an employee that worked at Wednesday Books. There was just a lot of negativity around
Yeah.
it, and they weren't addressing it. So we were kind of just like, okay, like, we're going to support the author. We'll still read the book. We'll still love the book, but we're not going to talk about it. We're not going to like give that free marketing. So I didn't really hear a lot of details, just that people loved it. So,
And
Well-
I'm one that usually never buys I will hold off for a certain period of time until I go and get those popular books because I want to forget about what everybody else said
Yeah.
and then like create my own thought rather than like when I'm reading, I'm thinking of everybody else's thought processes.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So
Especially being in this book community, there are lots of opinions on books that we probably will pick out. And
yeah.
you're like, oh, I don't want to read that. This person thought that.
Yeah.
Yes.
When really you should just form your own opinion.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So let's start talking about the world that is
Yep.
Divine Rivals.
So the setting of the book, we're going to go with the 1900s. And it's more of like in a mythological world, but it's a very real world feel, like London vibes is
Mhm.
how
Yeah.
I felt
I got
when I
that
was
too.
reading it.
Yeah, I think I picture these like old London cafes and like,
Mhm.
like cobblestone roads.
I think of
I
cobblestone and
too.
like the brick buildings and all the architecture.
And then when they go into like different parts of like Cambria and Oath, where they're like in like different towns, like where Marisol's B&B is, I just like picture this like really pretty brick building with like
Mhm.
ivy and stuff just like completely covering the building, and it's so beautiful in my head.
See, and that whenever they got into Marisol's house, I kind of pictured like farmland.
I did too.
Yeah, like cottagey farm
Yeah.
type.
Yes,
But like things were not city-like. It was
Yeah,
more
very
I have this very
country vibe.
country,
Mhm.
yes.
I guess I just didn't
Rolling
picture.
hills.
I didn't picture
like you didn't picture a
farm
farmhouse.
so much,
Yeah.
especially because they like make the little garden, and
Yes.
I still pictured like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen Kiki's Delivery Service. It's a Studio Ghibli like Hayao Miyazaki film, but the town that Kiki lives in, that's the vibes I was getting. Very like the houses are far away enough where it's not like a neighborhood, but like you still have neighbors that you can walk to, and you get those like cobblestone bridges. That's the vibe that I got.
I kind of feel that too. I don't know the show you're talking about, but that is what I pictured in my head, where it was just more country feeling than
Yeah.
it
Lots
was
of
city
green and
life.
flowers, and that's what I
Yeah.
got.
Yes. No, absolutely. And the wrought iron fences to get into
Yeah.
the gardens.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just a very beautiful world that she has built.
She painted it beautifully.
Yes. So I do have a question. When it comes to the title of the book, how did you guys feel it played out in the story?
So I think this is a really great question, because Divine Rivals, this book is portrayed as like enemies to lovers, but like I never saw Iris and Kitt as like enemies or
I didn't see
like
a true enemy.
yes, they're rivals. So I get the whole rivals part, and the divine, obviously you've got the two warring gods who, they're the divine, and that's what they call them in this book. All the gods, they're called the divine. That's how they studied them in school. And then you have that scene where Roman comes out the window and asks Iris for a different word for sublime. And, the different responses they get there, you got that like, what did he say? Divine.
She said divine.
She
and
said
then
divine, and
divine.
Addie said
Translucent, maybe?
or transcendent.
Yeah,
Maybe
transcendent, I think.
And So I definitely think there was a lot of elements and little like Easter eggs that kind of brought the title into the story.
Yeah, I
That's
felt like
immediately what I thought.
it was thrown
Mhm.
around in a couple places, and I was like, "Whoa, there's the
Mhm.
word."
Yes.
And the rivals definitely you got the beginning where it's Roman and Iris kind of like rivals to get this job at the paper, and then you've got your rivals, which are Enva and Dacre. I made sure I said that right after I said. So initially I was like Dacra. I couldn't think of how it was pronounced, and then you said you heard it in the audiobook, and I was like, okay, I have to keep telling myself Dacre, Acre.
That's how I did. Acre with a D in front.
I don't know. I felt like I agree with you with it being more with the gods than it was between Roman and Iris. I felt they called each other rivals, or she called him her rival, but I felt like there was more of an underlying attraction between the two of
Oh,
them
absolutely.
than there really was rivalry. I
And-
think she probably was trying to paint that in her head that it was more of a rivalry because she felt like she couldn't get close to people.
Mm-hmm.
But you can see the
Immediate attraction. Well, right.
Yeah.
Like they're rivals as far as they're trying to go for the same job.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody you can make that connection. But you've got these two people who so clearly admire each other's writing. You know, I think I highlighted some parts very early on that like she was reading everything that he wrote and vice versa. And, you know, they clearly admired each other and their words, which is very apparent later in the story also because they tell each other, you know, oh, I've read everything you wrote, and you know, your words are
Well, especially with the letters too, because they both kept
Mhm.
every letter that the other had written to each other, and he said that he reads them every night before he falls asleep, and maybe not all of them, but the majority of them. Like he loves the way that she writes, not only because he's getting to know her better, but that she just writes so beautifully.
Well, and especially when he brought the first article that both Addie and Iris wrote for the Incredin Tribune.
Oh, he brought
and
it
he
when
brought
they
the
went
paper
to
with him so
Avalon
they
Bluff.
could see it.
Yeah.
Um,
That was
He
cute.
was like,
Yeah.
"I'm so proud of you."
yeah.
Well, and I think at that point, Iris wasn't like sure of her feelings or hadn't like really admitted them.
Yeah.
But I think Kit at that point was like, "Oh yes, I love this woman. I'm leaving this job that my family wants me to have, and I'm leaving the world that I know
And the
behind."
security, like he was going into a war zone for her.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I think part of it was, you know, he's like, well, she's brave enough to do this, so maybe I should be too. I kind of got that, like, then it never really said, like, obviously he was scared to go because of what it was, but I think the fact that he just did it with, you know, no, how am I trying to say this? Like, no, he was just like, this is what I'm doing it for her. And
Yes.
that gave him the strength to go.
He didn't want to follow his father's demand.
Yeah.
Yeah, good for him.
Stand up, boy. So, if there's a quote that you connect most with in Divine Rivals, what quote is it that you felt personally or a part of the book?
Okay. So I think the thing that that resonated with me, and I was like immediately like, I want to remember these for the rest of my life, was the vows that they said during their wedding before shit hit the fan. And these are the vows. I pray that my days will be long at your side. Let me fill and satisfy every longing in your soul. May your hand be in mine, and sun and by night. Let our breaths twine and our blood become one until our bones return to dust. Even then, may I find your soul still sworn to mine. And I wrote a little note. I want these vows to be mine. I just thought that they were so beautifully written, and just they embodied both Iris and Kit completely, and how they felt towards each other. And it was just this really quick ceremony of, you know, we're getting ready to go, but I still want to be connected to you forever, even if it's just for one day. And I just felt that those vows just completely said everything they needed to say.
Yeah, there were a lot of quotes in the book that I felt like I connected to. The one that I wrote down for that question though was, "They're not even my sisters by blood, but I choose them, and that sort of love is everlasting." And I felt like that kind of connects with us, how, you know, we have kind of come together in this little group and become family. And
We choose that.
yeah, and I love that, we have such a good friendship, and not only do we just get together and talk about books, but I mean, we have chat threads and we talk and we hang out, and we support each other's kids, and it's just I've always wanted a type of friendship like that.
Are you gonna cry?
I'm so emotional. But I didn't even write down who said that. I think it was is it Nan? Is that what he called her? I think it was Roman's Nan that had said that about her friends. Like, right?
No, it was. Oh God, what was it? I thought it was like somebody that Iris met said it because she asked if they had family, and she says, "I have sisters, but they're not my blood sisters."
Was it Marisol that said
That's
that?
what I thought it was, but I could be mistaken.
Maybe. I'm ruining the quote now because I don't remember who said it, but
You just it just
I
sat with
highlighted
you.
it,
Yeah.
and I wrote it down separately later on just so I would remember that quote, because I just felt like it was heartwarming during like this very hard time in this book. So that was my favorite in the whole book.
Did you have one, Kate?
So I wrote down, it really isn't a specific quote per se. It was part of their letter that they wrote back and forth. And it was when Iris was asking Roman, "Do you feel as if you wear armor day after day?"
I did write that one down too.
And then his response was so amazing. And I wrote a little bit of that down, but like at the very, very, very end, he's like, "You'll miss so much by being so guarded," which
It's
like
so
I
true.
still feel that today. Like I feel that all the time.
Well, and I think that can connect to people's real life so easily because so many people are so scared to do this or
Yeah.
hesitant to do that, or you don't want to say something to upset somebody, but like really the only person that you're hurting is yourself because
Yes.
you're missing out, or you're not reaching your full potential, or you're not getting to experience the things that you would if you would just open up and say it.
Yes.
Yeah, that one was a really good one.
There were a lot of
There were
good
so many.
quotes in the book. Erica was making fun of me yesterday because I typed out all my highlighting. And she was like,
Damn, Kayla, you highlighted a lot.
And the majority of the things that I highlighted were quotes that they were talking about. It wasn't
Yes.
even just like,
Things that were
oh,
happening.
this happened, I want to remember what this was. It was things that they were saying to each other or writing to each other. And I was like, oh, wow,
That's so beautiful.
it's so pretty. I love it. So I highlighted it. It was hard to choose a favorite.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, what's your next question?
So I have a question for you guys. Were there any plot twists in Divine Rivals that you did not see coming? Or like things that happened in the book that you were just like, oh my God, never in a million years did I think that was going to happen?
So there was
The end?
As the book was going, I had to remind myself that I already knew there was a second book.
Yeah.
So a lot of these like things that were going to be like coming up and leading up, I was like, that has to be the way we're going. Something that I was very thrown off by is I didn't see her brother Forrest fighting for Dacre.
Yeah.
I did
Spoiler
not.
alert, if you haven't finished the book. That's okay.
That's okay. We're here to talk
about
the
it.
book.
But if you haven't finished the book, there are lots of spoilers
Yeah.
ahead. So please exit now and come back and listen when you're finished.
So,
But I had that written down too. I didn't see the end coming. I didn't think Forrest was still alive. And if he was,
that.
like, where was he?
Yes.
But I didn't see him basically kidnapping her and taking her back to Oath. And I did not see that he was one of Dacre's soldiers. And I definitely didn't think, which is kind of dumb, like everybody has said that this book ends on a cliffhanger, but Dacre actually took Roman to the underworld.
Yes.
So I didn't, like, there was a lot at the end and I was like, oh my God. Oh my God.
Yes.
There's more happening.
well, I was reading the end of Divine Rivals while I was at work,
Mm-hmm.
and Kayla, you had already finished it.
Yeah.
And I
She
was
kept asking me questions and I was like, just finish the book. I'm not telling you the answers.
So I got this feeling, 'cause, it was like at the point of the book where you're like half expecting like that third act breakup or, those things that happen at the very end. And I'm like, I straight up said to Kayla, I said, if he dies, I'm done. If they get separated, I'm done. I'm done.
I went,
not doing it.
I turned my head away
And she
from
just
her.
turned her head away. And I had gotten to the part where the gas was coming And I was just like, oh my God, they're not holding hands anymore. Where they're gonna get lost.
get
And I started panicking. And then it comes to the part where she meets face to face with this person that's wearing a gas mask, and she just assumes it's Roman. And from the second that person showed up, I was like, it's not Roman.
Yeah, I thought the same thing too.
Never in a million years expected it to be her brother.
I did not either.
But oh, sorry,
No, go ahead. No.
But when they get to the that patch of grass where he's like dragging her and she's trying to look behind and she realizes Roman's coming for her and she's just watching him suffer to get to her, my heart shattered. And I was just like, I get that he wants to protect his sister, but that's her happiness and her livelihood. And did he really believe that he couldn't help him get away also? Like, did he really think, oh, I'm just going to let my sister, who just told me that's her husband, I'm just going to let him die? But then we wouldn't have the story that is forming in the second book.
It was very sad to know that they were being ripped apart and that Roman was basically dying on the street in front of her. And, oh, that was so sad.
It broke me. I was just, no.
Yeah, she came out. She's like, I finished it. And I was like, yeah, and?
I'm done.
She's like, I told you I was done. And I was like, well, it's over now, so now we can read the next book.
And then I started the next book like 5 minutes later, and I was like, okay. By the way, Katie, do you want to go ahead and announce it right now while we're talking about it?
Yeah, tell everybody.
So get prepared, because we all love the first one. We are going straight into the second one.
Yay!
Yes, I'm so excited. I started reading it because Erica was like, I'm going to read it. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to start reading it. And I didn't get very far just because life has been crazy busy. But so far into the book, I'm like maybe 20 pages in. It's pretty good. And Erica's way further ahead than all things.
I'm 3/4 of the way through.
Yeah.
And I'm loving it. And I can't wait for you guys to read it.
And I'm the straggler that will be going and picking it up tonight. Because I didn't want to get it, so
we'll
I
all
couldn't
have
be
it.
tempted to read
Well,
it.
that was something else that we had talked about. We were like, should we keep reading, or should we like wait until we talk about it? Because like I'm afraid I'm gonna give it away. But I can say in good faith
that you
that
separated it.
I was able to separate it really well, because it's in a completely just different bubble. Things are so different that it's really easy to differentiate. Like, okay, this is the first book and this is the second book.
Yeah,
So
so if
Well,
you
I'm
love this
excited.
book, then you're going to love the second one, is
Mhm.
what Erica is saying. Basically, it's
And
really
I'm-
good. She's flying through it. If that is any indicator, Erica is flying through this book.
and Kayla's usually the one ahead of me.
Right.
Yeah, I'm struggling behind, but it's okay. I will get there.
And I'm so happy that we're getting the response that we are, and like so many people are reading it. Like people I would have never expected
Mhm.
to
Yes.
read it.
Yeah, so many people have approached me and they're like, I am really excited to read this book along with you guys. And I was so excited to do a giveaway on the book because I felt like, Brandy, if you're listening, I don't know if you would have read this book. I don't see you as a fantasy reader. Brandy was our giveaway winner, and I actually went to high school with her. So I kind of know her, and she is in my book group, and I see things that she comments on. And I was really excited that she won the book because I felt like that really is going to give her a push to read
Mhm.
something that maybe she wouldn't typically read. So Brandy will have to give us her
Opinion.
feedback and opinion on it.
I was also really surprised how many people, because this book was so big and because it's been out for so long,
How many people hadn't read it?
hadn't read it
Mhm.
because,
They're all like Katie.
It's one of those books that's like, okay, they say you see the same 10 books on Book Talk. This, I feel like, is one of those 10 books. And so I was really shocked that there weren't a lot of people that had read it at this point.
We have gotten a lot of feedback too, and just the pictures that we posted that announcing that we were going to read this on Instagram. People who have Bookstagram accounts saying that they read the series last year and that it was one of their favorite series that they've read. And if they could go back and read it again for the first time, this would be a book that they would choose. Or other people are like, it's been on my shelf for so long, and I'm so glad that you posted about it because now I want to go grab it and read it myself. So I feel like we did really get a good response from picking this book. So good job, Katie.
Good job.
No pressure.
If we had the clapping noise and the applause, we will give you some applause here.
I'll take it.
What's your next question for us, Katie?
So, are you satisfied with the ending of Divine Rivals?
Nope.
And
Nope.
maybe
Nope.
Kayla, you should explain what happens in the end because you feel very, very
I was
Passionate about it.
passionate about
I
it.
was very sad at the ending.
I
So
was too.
did you read the epilogue, Katie?
I did, and I will never not read one now.
I don't know if
I
you
did
listened
not
to
read
the
the acknowledgments, though. I
Katie-
didn't either.
Katie, who doesn't ever read the epilogue, it was like, I gotta make sure I read the epilogue here.
Mhm.
So I had written down part of the epilogue was it said, sometimes they, which is Dacre's soldiers, were good at picking the right ones, but other times they chose poorly, and he was left with scraps of a being. And I kind of thought that that was describing Forrest, maybe, because Iris has said over and over again how he is not the same person that he was before he left. And he's even said, like, there's just so many things that have happened. So I kind of felt like they were kind of talking about Forrest. The secret was this. The will had to still be present in the spirit. It usually shined brightest right before death. Val bowed before he drew a ring in the ground, encircling the mortal, a quick way to open a portal to pass below. Satisfied, Dacre set his eyes eastward on the path that would lead him to Enba. So we had learned in the last chapter of the book that Roman had basically was dying on the street when
Fighting to get
fighting to get to
Yeah.
Iris, but
So there's that will right there that he says
Yeah.
is the
Mhm.
strongest right before he dies, because I'm pretty sure at one point it was fairly obvious that he was in the ground, couldn't get back up.
yeah,
He was
like that
trying to crawl.
Yeah, he was
Mhm.
struggling and he was not getting back up. So that's why I thought that was the strongest was to survive would be Roman. And he drew a circle in the ground. So that's, he drew a circle in the ground around Roman's body, basically,
Mhm.
to kind of make him. I don't even know if they even came out and said what that made them. Like, he basically
No.
brought them back from the dead, right? And he was going to take him to the underworld to live with him. So nobody knows what happened to Forrest except for Erica, who's read ahead.
So I have a question.
Not saying anything.
So when
She's
you
smiling at us.
read that and Forrest is like, I can't tell you where he is, do you think Forrest knew where he was?
Forrest knew exactly where
because
he was.
he went through the same process when he was at the infirmary?
I'm assuming he knows where he is. Like, I don't see how he.
Because he said now's like he made some comment about
I
like
know
now's
more
not
than
the
you.
time to talk about this, or it's not safe to talk
Yeah.
about this right now.
And he kept saying, like, I know more than you.
Yeah.
yes.
I feel
He
like he
knows.
was a little, like, not guarded, but paranoid, maybe. That maybe there's some kind of connection that we don't know about that Dacre has with the people that he
Could be.
brings back to life. And
Or of the other people. And yeah.
so we know Dacre is on his way to find Enba. And
Moving
Iris is
east.
probably going to fight to the death to find Roman. She doesn't even know he's alive. So
Yes. But at the very end, when she walked into her bedroom and she saw the letter,
Tell us.
and then it said, hold on, I'm going to get it perfect. I want to get it perfect.
I know, I was excited when I saw that too.
But here's my question.
How?
How? Or was that a letter that was left?
Oh, wasn't that the letter
Wasn't that
was
the letter
last?
that was left before she, like, he wrote her before she,
Before he left.
yeah, before he left.
Mhm.
So that was it.
Yeah, and it said, Iris, it's me, Kit.
Oh, yeah. That was the letter he wrote to her before.
Yeah.
But when she left, and she left it there.
When she says, I won't be able to
Yeah.
write you back. And he's like,
Aw,
shit,
so-
I gotta go.
Yeah, that didn't cross my mind. He did leave that.
Before. 'Cause
Well,
that's
and I
what-
think that helped when she did finally read that, because she was kind of concerned. You kept this from me. Were you playing me? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because she questioned his motives.
And that right there, that letter that says, this is who I am,
she had told-
shows
yeah.
that, like, he tried to tell her
before she left.
before
Yep.
she left, because he did want her to know.
Like, he wasn't fake.
Mm-hmm.
So, great ending.
I had a quote that I wanted to see what you guys thought about. So the quote was, your grief will never truly fade. It'll always be with you, a shadow you carry in your soul, but it will become fainter as your life becomes brighter. You will learn to live outside of it again, as impossible as that may sound. Others who share your pain will also help you heal, because you are not alone, not in your fear or your grief or your hopes or your dreams. You are not alone. So I loved that quote. I felt like everybody has lost somebody or something that is important to them in life. And while we all struggle with our grief differently, we also all struggle the same. There's like some psychological aspect of the process that you grieve in. And I feel like everyone hits most parts of that process. And it's important to know that while you feel alone, that there's so many other people going through it. And Iris struggled so much in the book, feeling like she was just kind of separated from everybody and that she had lost so much and she just wasn't really willing to attach to anybody until she finally let Roman in.
Mhm.
Did you guys feel like that too? That she like just kind of blocked everybody
Absolutely.
completely out of
Oh, yeah.
everything?
I think from the get-go, like, you have Forrest leaving, she blocked people out. She was just mad. And then when her mother passed, she was even
I have a question about that too.
more mad.
Do you guys think that she really just fell? Or do you think she committed suicide?
Well, wasn't she ran over by a train?
Mhm.
Yeah, but don't you think that maybe she could have?
Oh, I got what you're
'Cause
saying.
she was so depressed.
intoxicated.
She was drunk.
Yeah, she was so
She
it
was
said she
drunk.
was
They
intoxicated.
did say that she was
Mhm.
intoxicated? Okay. I was thinking that at
And
the
then
end of the book,
that she
and I was
tripped
like,
or fell.
You know,
I felt like they talk about mental health so much in this
Yes.
book, and I felt like they had talked about her mental health a lot and how much she was struggling that Forrest had left them, and then she, like, started to lean on alcohol, and she kinda had just become a shell and didn't do anything, didn't get up, and they talk about the bottles that are all around their house all the time, and she just seems like she fell into such a deep depression, and I kinda just wondered if maybe she didn't just stumble and fall accidentally into the train
I
tracks.
think she could have, but
Yeah.
they didn't really talk about that. So
Yeah.
it's up for interpretation, I guess.
Well, there's my interpretation of it.
That was some accent.
There's my southern accent of it. So, okay, sorry. Go ahead with whatever you had next. I don't know.
Well, one of the questions was going to be the theme of mental health and how they portray it in this book and your
I think I
thoughts.
kind of like covered that.
But exactly.
There just was a lot. I felt like there was a lot of different mental health depictions throughout the book.
Now, do you think the title Divine Rivals, and I think we kind of hit on this point a little bit, is more relevant to the Dacre and Inva or Roman and Iris?
I think it's literally like split down the middle.
I completely agree. I don't think it sways one way or the
Mm-mm.
other.
I think the divine beings that are enemies, rivals, and then you have this divine transcending love that they were at one point rivals. I guess it kind of just like
Yeah.
ties into like both of that.
I feel like I kind of answered that at the beginning of I feel that it was more between the gods than it was between Roman and Iris, and that Roman and Iris really didn't have a true rivalry. They had more of a forming relationship than the divine rival.
Now, do you have a favorite character?
I loved Addie. I loved her little no nonsense. I love that she signed up to be a correspondent simply so she could
Stick it to her
stick it to her
professor.
professor, and that she paid for a subscription of the Tribune to come to his house so he'd be able to see her writing. Like, that just shows that she believed in herself enough that she knew that she was going to get where she wanted to go, and that she was going to write how she wanted to write. And no matter what someone said about, especially a professor, I feel like a professor typically is somebody that a lot of people look up to, and then when they tell you you're not going to make it, that maybe you just take that as, okay, they said I'm not good enough, so apparently I'm not good enough. And I thought specifically about her thoughts on, like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to show him that this being a YA book, probably, like, that is something so good for young adults to be reading, to know that just because one person tells you that you're not good enough to do something doesn't mean that, like, that's the truth. You have to find that will in yourself, and eventually other people will see that you are doing what you think you can do and that you're good at it. So I kind of like that.
All right. Who's your favorite character?
I don't really have a favorite character, but I think if I had to pick one, I'd probably pick Roman. I just think he's just got so much like dimension to him, and like when you look at his past and how he's turned out and how he's not he just seems like this person that's just so non-judgmental, and I like him. I like him.
Yeah, I do too. But I like him with Iris though. I like the banter that they have together. I think that they just have a lot in common, and they don't have a lot in common, but they just, the banter back and forth, I just love that. It's so funny and
Genuine.
yeah.
And it's so witty.
Yes.
It is,
And I think that's
so
what makes it
witty.
better.
Iris is very witty.
Yeah. She's on it with her comebacks.
I would have to say that I really liked his grandma or his nan because she like just set his path to not follow his father's demands.
Yeah.
Like she told him, go do your own thing. Like no matter what he makes you do, like go follow her. Because she knew that he did not want to do this arranged marriage and gave him that boost to
I just
not
like the way
follow
she
the-
talked
yeah.
to him.
like, yeah, she just set him in his place and
Speaking of the arranged marriage, so, you know, he was clearly unhappy about it, but he never really, like, he tried to kind of like take a stand to his dad, but once his dad was like, you're doing this, he just was like, okay, whatever. Did you expect him to completely just
Up and leave?
quit his job,
No.
I
break the
didn't.
marriage?
I didn't because at one point she said, you know, he saw the canisters, his father with the
Right.
canisters in his office, and he asked her about it, and she's like, well, you'll find out when you marry me.
And I thought he was going to do it so he could figure out what it was.
I thought
You
so
know,
too, because
I-
then I figured he was going to message Iris
and
to-
tell her.
Yeah.
But now
I
think
felt really
but-
weird things about Eleanor was her
Yeah,
name,
she-
right?
yes,
That
it
was
was
his
Eleanor.
betrothed.
Little.
Yeah.
I feel like I guess we did eventually find out what it was, though. It was like
It was the gas.
gas,
Yes,
yeah.
it wasn't bombs. It was
But the way
gas.
that Rebecca wrote about her and like her appearance when he first met her and how she just looked, she almost described her as sickly looking and
Well, I mean, if she was in a lab forming this toxic gas, she's probably
right, which we
Well-
didn't know at the time. But I kind of wonder now that we know that, which I guess we would have kind of seen that in Forrest. I guess maybe she would have described it. But I wonder if maybe when Dacre brings people back from things, like if their appearance changes at all, and that they're supplying these bombs to him, maybe that something had happened to her. It was just weird to me. I had highlighted the way that they described it. They said blue veins pulsed in her temples and on the backs of her hands, and she looked fragile. And I don't know, the way that she talked about her appearance just made me wonder if something else was going on that maybe we'll find out in book 2.
Right. And because before he left her, they were at lunch.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, we can get married and we can go to our own quarters, and she can have her own separate life with a significant other, and he can have his own separate life with a significant other. They're just going in it for the title.
Yeah.
and for the families.
And for
yeah,
the
even
families,
she didn't
because-
really have any kind of
Yeah.
desire to
And
be with him.
Yeah, because I even wondered, like, within the book, it really never mentioned, like, what money his father had, but then it's mentioned he was the owner of the railroad.
Railroad, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm curious to see if she gets brought back up or her father, because of now that we know what those bombs actually were, that they were those gas bombs.
We won't look at Erica when we say that.
Nobody look at Erica while
I
we're
mean, I can't
talking.
give you an answer because I don't know at this
Oh,
point.
all right.
So they talked about the Alouette, which is the typewriter that Roman and Iris each used to write back and forth. And to give you a backstory, if you don't remember, the typewriters were their grandmothers,
Mhm.
and the grandmothers had a friend who had fallen ill when she was young, and her dad, who had a lot of money, was like, my daughter is sick and she's not allowed to see her friends, and I just feel like she still needs that outlet to be able to talk to her friends. So he had hired somebody to make this magical typewriter that they could write to each other, and whatever they wrote to each other would go to the person who had the other typewriter. So three girlfriends with that. And they've mentioned multiple times how the first Alouette is in the museum,
Mhm.
because that first girl who had fallen ill ended up passing away, and her dad had donated it to the museum. And then the grandmother still had theirs, passed it down to their grandchildren,
Mhm.
right? So do you think that anything is funny about how that they mentioned that first Alouette multiple times? Do you really think it's in the museum, or do you think it's someplace else?
I never.
I'm not going to give my opinion because I know the answer.
I never put thought into that.
Well,
to be
so this
honest,
is my thought
because
only because I read the synopsis
oh no.
this time of the second book. I actually
At
read
least
the
you didn't read
synopsis
the
this
second book
time.
first this time.
Yes. Story of my life. I read books out of order all the time. It's because I don't read synopsises. I don't read anything regarding a book. And then I'm like, oh, crap. I just read book 3 out of a 5-book trilogy and I started with it. But
Trilogy.
or not trilogy,
Series.
5-book series. But anyways, I read the synopsis of Ruthless Vows and they stated that Roman is starting to receive letters again. And they also said that Iris had gone back to Avalon Bluffs, which is where the bombing had occurred.
Yes.
So I wondered if she went back there and found her typewriter, or if she like broke into the museum and got the typewriter, if it really was there. And if she's writing to Roman, is he getting it? And if he's getting it, what typewriter does he have? Because I doubt that they went and got his belongings out of Marisol's house. I have so many questions.
I have so many answers,
I
but you're
know,
going to
I
have to
know.
read book 2 to find out.
You're keeping a straight face over there.
I'm
So,
impressed.
I'm trying not to give anything
I just have
away.
lots of thoughts on
I-
what's going to happen with
I
this.
will say that when I was reading the first book, I didn't think twice when they said that it was in the museum.
I thought they mentioned it
Because you
so
think
many
something's in the
times.
museum, people can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't it be there?
I know, but why do they keep mentioning it? I know they mentioned it at least twice.
Probably because it's
Just-
important. I don't know.
Because so. Well, we'll see if my theory holds true.
We
The
know
next
it's coming
book.
back.
We know it's
How?
coming back. So I'm just
How is it
curious
coming
to
back?
see if that first one was really at the museum or not.
Well, is your prediction going to be right or wrong?
Yeah.
We'll find out.
We'll see. We'll see next time on the Book Rewind.
Are we done?
No.
I think it's the perfect.
Let's rewind.
Hold up. Let's rewind. Erica, do you have any other questions?
Yes, I really want to talk about, because we talked briefly about how we picture this movie in our mind. And I want to know who you guys would picture for some of these characters.
I'm so bad.
So usually I'm not this bad at it. I have a picture in my head of what Iris looks like. And I Googled like 20-year-old actresses just to kind of to see if anything kind of popped out at me. And no one really popped out at me for hers. But for him, Harry Styles did for some reason. And I don't know why. I don't know.
He doesn't have black hair, though.
Yeah, but he could dye his hair.
I know.
You have purple hair. It's not
hair is
natural.
not purple.
So, of all of the
He does have
characters,
black hair.
I know, but think about it like this, though. In Hollywood, half the time they cast characters who are either way older or way younger than the actual age of the character. And the person that I picture out of all the characters is Addie. And I picture Zoe Kravitz as Addie.
Okay.
Because I feel like she would be really good at having like that attitude and just her demeanor as a whole. That's just who I picture. And because I just love her.
So did you picture anybody for Iris?
You know, I don't really have a picture for her.
Well, it's funny that you said that with like the age thing because who was the actress in the new Mary Poppins film?
Emily Blunt?
Yeah. That's kind of who I picture for Iris. I don't know why. That's who I
She's
pictured.
a little too old for
I
that
know, but that's
character.
why I didn't say it to begin with because of the
She
age
just, like,
thing.
such strong attribute.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's just her appearance. Like
Yes.
if she was a little bit younger, it would work well, but I don't know. Well, you completely shot down who I picture in my head.
But see, like, I feel like I was picturing more of the side character. I
Oh.
try not to picture a main character because I don't want to be disappointed or if that were to ever happen, or you have this specific like idea in your head and nobody could come close to that. You know what I mean? Sometimes that's kind of how I feel.
Do you have somebody for Forrest, though?
So I do actually.
Okay.
And I don't know why I kept picturing him, but I really pictured Ian Somerhalder for Forrest because he just kind of gives like that older brother, I could be an asshole and pull you away from your husband who's dying kind of vibe.
That's funny.
Fair enough.
I picture him. I don't know why.
There is a lot of fan art though for Divine Rivals. I don't know if you guys have looked at that.
Well, she has hazel eyes. So maybe I could play her because I have hazel eyes.
Just won't be able to have purple hair. So you're gonna have
That's
to give
okay.
her-
My natural hair is not purple anyway.
It's not?
Kayla.
All right. So do you guys have anything else to say about this book?
You know, looking at like book club questions that we found online, there was one question that like I don't think I could physically answer. And it was, who do you think is the better writer, Roman or Iris?
Oh, that's a good one. I would have to say I love the knowledge Roman gave
Yes.
Iris, but I loved how poetic Iris and how heartfelt. Like she
Mhm.
had so much love and heart in her letters to Roman. I don't know. That's a tough one. I don't know if I
Well,
can
there was-
physically answer.
There was one
or-
point too where she had told him about how her brother was missing at the very beginning of the book, and he was writing that article, and she's like, I'll help you. And she had basically told him, my brother's missing. Then he was like, well, how do you feel about that? And
because she
had
told
told
him
him,
you need to
you
put
never
feeling
put
in
your
it."
feelings into your writing. So he's straight to the facts. He writes
Mm-hmm.
the facts, and that's it. He doesn't put
Yes.
any of his emotion or his feelings or his opinions in it. Whereas she's the opposite. She
Mhm.
does include facts, but she's more putting herself in there and her feelings and emotions. And I feel like I relate more to her than I would to him, because I would want to share my opinion if I was writing an article like that as in a
Mhm.
column. I guess maybe
Mhm.
it depends on
I-
what your
What the
boss
column-
is looking
well,
for
and
you.
what the column's about. I think
Mhm.
I think to answer that question is subjective because everybody has different opinions, everybody has different tastes, but I think it matters the subject matter. Roman would probably be a lot better writing something like fiction, like facts, and I think he would make a really good writer for things like that because he could write poetically and he did say some very beautiful things to Iris. But I think as far as like storytelling, Iris would do way better.
He would be very good, like political
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
columns.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yes. No, completely.
Well, and also, I mean, I really liked when she went to the front line and was talking with all the soldiers, and how all she really wanted was a letter from her brother. And she was like, well, if I can't get a letter from my brother, maybe I can write these letters for these soldiers and give
Yes.
somebody else at home some
Peace of mind.
peace of mind, some closure that, that their loved one is still okay and that they're thinking about them. And I loved that part of the book, how she had wrote all those letters.
Speaking of, didn't you think it was really funny? So she was sending all these soldiers' letters under the wardrobe and
Mhm.
giving them to Roman to send out. But how did she not put two and two together when Roman was like, "Oh, I can't send your letters anymore. I'm leaving." I feel
I
like
think she just deep down didn't want it to be Roman. She had some type of
see, I think she did deep down want it to be Roman because when she was around Roman, the feelings he gave her
yeah.
were similar to the ones that she got when she was writing these letters with Carver.
Yeah.
And, she even admitted like she had feelings for Carver and she had feelings for Roman, but she was having trouble combining them and putting them together. So I thought it was really funny the way she had them combined was, here, you read this letter that Carver wrote
Oh,
me.
yeah.
Yes.
So I
And
can
then you
see
guys
it.
will be
I
one.
can see it. Yeah.
Or I can hear it in your voice.
Yeah.
Okay, so I do have to ask you guys. I want to know how you guys felt about after their wedding and their first night together, like what that writing gave you. Like how did you feel about their like connection and how they consummated the marriage and, had that like bonding moment with each other?
I don't know, kind of just made it more of like a beautiful thing that happens between
Like an emotional
yeah,
connection,
yes.
kind of.
And they had a lot of physical connection too, because he talked like how they had to turn all the lights off or put out all
they
the,
had to put all the
candles
candles.
out. So like they had to use their senses and their feeling and touching and not being able to see their surrounding of that physical person after they got undressed. But like I thought if there was spice to it, I think it would have
I think it
I think it would totally change
I
the
think it would
aspect
have
of the
turned
book.
the book and it wouldn't have kept the same path as it did the
Yeah.
rest of the
I
story.
think it would have changed the type of connection that they had.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like it was so intimate.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be spicy to be
No.
intimate.
Yeah.
It was
It was still intense.
It was love. It was passion. It was everything. And I think it was written perfect. I wouldn't have changed a thing.
I like how they mention the first clothing or the first article we take off
So
our
boot.
shoes.
Yeah.
I'm just like,
It
I
was
love
so
it.
innocent
It
because
was.
they were inexperienced and
Yes.
they were young and they were just so in love and they just wanted to feel the touch of each other. And I mean, even just like the gasp they got from like just touching their hair or, putting their hands to their hair. It was just so, so beautiful. I loved it.
I thought it was really well written too.
And this just shows how Rebecca Ross really thought through this book when she wrote it.
So, Kayla, do you think you're going to let your daughter read it?
I was just going to mention that. I don't think I will now. I don't know. She's almost 13. I feel like or almost 12. I feel like there is most of the book that I wouldn't have a single problem. Like almost the majority of the book, I'd have no problem letting her read. And she has read other books where there, is love and I don't even know.
Are you afraid to say the word sex?
I don't even know if I'm trying to think. Like, I guess The Summer I Turned Pretty, she read that, and I don't think that they did talk about sex in that book. I think it was in the second book. So, I mean, I guess I would let her read it. I mean, we've had talks and stuff about it, but I don't know. I get kind of nervous when it's something that she's reading and not something that we're like watching together or talking about together, that we can have that open conversation if she's just sitting in her room reading this book. And I want to make sure that she knows that like she can talk to me about stuff like that.
And
so.
I feel like like I said, it was written to where it wasn't specific. Like it's written to where it sounds like they're married now. They're bonding.
Yeah.
They're saving themselves for each other. I don't think it was so detailed that it would be inappropriate for a young girl.
Yeah. I wonder what the age, like her recommendation is for her book. I wonder if she has that release, because a lot of authors who do release
I think
YA
usually
books
like
do have it
on like the book sites or like Amazon or Barnes and Noble. Sometimes they'll have like
I do.
the
They do
age
because
range.
It says 13 and up.
So she's almost there.
And then it just does say advisory reference to alcohol use to extremes death of a parent.
So it's probably more
probably
It's
for
more
that
the trigger
than-
warnings than the
Mhm.
actual.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I probably will let her read it. I told her that when I started reading it, that this was a book that I thought she would really enjoy. So we'll see.
So, Erica, as you've read the second book, do you think she'd be able to read the second book
So as far
of
like
the story?
like I said, I'm 3/4 of the way through, and I have not read anything that was inappropriate.
Okay.
So I definitely think
I
it's
wondered if the
something-
second book would change
I mean,
the aspect of
For all I know, the ending could change that,
change
but I don't think it's that kind of a book.
Yeah.
I think, again, coming back to the title, Divine Rivals, I think it's more about this, transcendent connection, and just, it's not about that.
Yeah.
It's just a lovely, beautiful story. And I definitely think that it would be appropriate for a young girl. So, yeah. So I have read most of the second book. So I'm going to ask you ladies, because I cannot answer. I know Kayla's dying to talk about her predictions for this book. So I'm going to rapid fire some questions that I think.
Oh, rapid fire.
Rapid fire questions.
I'm kind of nervous now.
Okay. So let's see. What do you think is going to happen to Roman?
Well, I think he's in do they ever really call, what is it, the underworld, or what do they call?
So
where
he's
they
an
go?
I guess
like
their
the
last name is
underling?
Underling. So I feel like you said this
So he's
previously in a
there.
conversation we had, Katie, that it's like heaven and hell.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like,
That's how I envision it.
Yeah.
but because like his physical appearance is not described as demon-like,
No.
No.
but it is like a darker appearance than like
Yes.
the description of Enva, which, we really didn't get a whole lot of description of either one of them. But I'm just curious what you think. They end the first book with Roman coming, being brought to the underworld. Like I'm curious what your predictions are of what you think is going to happen to him, where he's at, what he's doing. because clearly at the end of the book, they were like, I guess, like saving him.
So can I ask a question before you answer?
Mhm.
Did anybody else have the feelings of Iron Flame when they finished that book? And it was like, it just brought back all those feelings.
Spoiler alert.
No, I wasn't even thinking about it.
I read that and I was like,
What part of it?
I just felt like at the very, very end, like literally the last.
like just because it was like a cliffhanger.
I can kind of see what you're
Because like
saying.
the
I don't know,
good,
so
is,
what
the good is
happened?
going to bad.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I can kind of
Yeah,
see that.
but
Okay.
okay, sorry. Go ahead and answer your question because I have
Either
those
one of you
emotions.
could answer this
um,
question
Because
Come
I
on.
had read the synopsis for Ruthless Vows. They say that Roman can't remember his past and that he starts getting letters. So I'm thinking that maybe Iris is really going to drive home, like just kind of show who she is in her writing to him to kind of bring back some memories if she can. And so they can reunite. I have no doubt by the end of the second book that they will be reunited. I have no doubt. And if
In
Rebecca
some
doesn't
way.
give us this closure, I'm going to be very upset. I would assume that there's going to be more probably war in this book, and you'll probably get some more aspect of like Enva and Dacre together. You didn't ask that part yet, did
No,
you?
but keep going.
I'm just kind of putting my thoughts together. I already told you my typewriter prediction that
I think we'll see
somehow
more of the
typewriters
gods.
are going to be brought back.
Like,
Katie, you think you'll see more of
I
the
think
gods?
it's more of the gods that are gonna like.
Yeah.
I just because
I
like,
hope
it would
Forrest
come with
isn't in this book. I don't like Forrest anymore. Can't look at Erica.
My feelings are Forrest. It's just not
Well, I
good.
said I can't look at Erica.
I am
No.
not giving away anything with my facial
So I
expressions.
question, like, do you think Forrest is going to try to brainwash Iris with him fighting for Dacre?
Probably. I mean, maybe
Like,
not.
I feel like
don't
that
know.
has to come in play at some point. Or do you think, well, Forrest is going to have to play a part in Iris's viewpoints because Forrest already knows what happened to Roman. So something is going to collide.
Yeah,
What?
well, he says I know more than you, so I wonder.
Yes.
I'm wondering if he knows that. Well, so does everybody lose their memories whenever they're brought back to life, and somehow Forrest got his back?
So keep
Or-
that question in mind when you start reading the next book.
I was going to say, or will they feed him only the memories that
And I'm gonna-
they want him to have?
because they wanted him because he's a correspondent. They wanted him to type.
Because it would be his first correspondent for Dacre.
Yeah. So do they
So-
only want him to know certain things, remember certain things because they have an agenda, which they talk about a lot in the first book with the Chancellor having an agenda and not wanting
Mhm.
certain things published and talked about. So is it going to be the opposite and coming from Dacre's point of view?
So I want to ask you this, Katie, because you kind of touched base on it a little bit. You think, your predictions about Forrest and where you think he is and what you think he's doing. So if you think about it, Forrest just took Iris. Katie, do you think now that you know that Iris is with Forrest back at home, do you think that he is still fighting for Dacre being back at home?
I definitely think there's some Dacre in his body. I think he has a vision. He's going to try to get Iris to see his vision and his viewpoint, but I don't know how far that's going to get because Iris is such a strong woman. I don't know what she will fall for.
I can't wait for you guys to see what happened.
No.
Oh
gosh.
my goodness, I'm so excited for the second book.
So we are going to be reading the second
Yes.
book. So next week, that's what we will be discussing.
Yeah. So we hope you guys like this book. And Katie did a great job picking out a great book for our number 2 pick. So.
2 for 2?
And I
Yeah.
guess technically she's getting number 3 too because
Oh,
you
that's
picked
okay.
such
No,
a
that's
great
okay.
book. But yeah, stay
Two-
tuned next week
2.2.
and we'll talk about
Yeah.
Ruthless Vows.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening and following along with us. We are so glad that you joined our book club.
Find us on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook at The Book Rewind to be a part of our discussions.
I'm Katie.
I'm Kayla,
I'm Erica.
and this is The Book Rewind.